It's day 663 of the war in Gaza, and finally, the entire Arab League is condemning the October 7th massacre and demanding that Hamas disarm. The Arab call has yet to be accepted by Hamas. Meanwhile, the war is ongoing. More on this from ILTV's Steve Leibowitz.
It took them way too long, but in a first, the Arab League condemned Hamas and the October 7th massacre and called for the terrorists to disarm. The call came in a declaration released at the United Nations confab for a two-state solution. The declaration is signed by the EU and many other countries. It urges the terror group to give up Gaza rule, free the hostages, and at the same time calls on Israel to end the war in Gaza and agree to a Palestinian state. Arab and Muslim countries signing the declaration included Saudi Arabia, Egypt, Jordan, and Turkey. The still unpublished 17-page text called the New York Declaration reportedly sets out a phased plan to end the conflict in Gaza, Judea and Samaria, and the entire Middle East region. Meanwhile, it's day 663 of the war in Gaza. Hamas has not put down their arms, and with no ceasefire in sight, the IDF is pushing forward with attacks on Hamas in a number of areas of Gaza, both above and below ground. IDF forces destroyed a weapons storage facility in the southern sector. Secondary explosions were identified, indicating presence of ammunition. In the Khan Yunis area, Division 36 eliminated a number of terrorists over the past 24 hours and directed airstrikes on terror targets. In one of the strikes, a weapons storage facility was destroyed. In Zaytun, the 98th Division continues to expand combat operations in the northern sector in the areas of Sujaiya and Zaytun. The forces are working to destroy terror infrastructure and disrupt enemy firing and launching capabilities. The Arab call to disarm has so far gone unheeded by Hamas. In the meantime, the IDF continues to degrade any and all Hamas assets found in Gaza.
Israel and the U.S. both rejected the British announcement that it intends to recognize a Palestinian state unless a ceasefire is reached in Gaza. Jerusalem called it a reward for terror, while U.S. President Trump is not planning to go in that direction. More from ILTV's Devo Klein.
Israel has angrily rejected the announced UK intention to unilaterally recognize a Palestinian state later this year, unless Israel commits to a ceasefire in Gaza and a long-term peace process. The Foreign Ministry posted, quote, "The shift in the British government's position at this time, following the French move and internal political pressures, constitutes a reward for Hamas and harms efforts to achieve a ceasefire in Gaza and a long-term peace process." Prime Minister Netanyahu posted, "Starmer rewards Hamas's monstrous terrorism and punishes its victims. A jihadist state on Israel's border today will threaten Britain tomorrow." This was the announcement by Starmer.
So today, as part of this process towards peace, I can confirm the UK will recognise the State of Palestine by the United Nations General Assembly in September, unless the Israeli government takes substantive steps to end the appalling situation in Gaza, agree to a ceasefire, and commit to a long-term sustainable peace, reviving the prospect of a two-state solution.
The announcement by Starmer came days after French President Macron said Paris would recognize a Palestinian state at the United Nations General Assembly in September. U.S. President Donald Trump also weighed in, described the British and French recognition of a Palestinian state as a reward for Hamas. Speaking with voice only from the Air Force One after meeting British Prime Minister Starmer, Trump said that he opposed the British move to recognize Palestine. Trump said that he did not discuss the issue in his recent meeting with the Prime Minister, but made it clear that he opposes the move.
You could make the case that you're rewarding people, that, you're rewarding Hamas if you do that, and I don't think they should be rewarded. So I'm not in that camp, to be honest. We'll let you know where we are, but I am not in that camp.
Mr. President,
because if you do that, you really are rewarding Hamas, and I'm not about to do that.
As international outrage continues against Israel for the reports and images coming out of the Gaza Strip, Israel, in coordination with other Arab countries, are continuing to drop aid packages into the enclave, all while dozens of trucks are picking up pallets each day. ILTV's Shosh Bedrosian has the latest on the situation.
New video is emerging from the Gaza Strip, showing humanitarian aid trucks being overtaken by Hamas terrorists on the roof, wearing yellow vests as they pop off gunfire from the top. The aid sent for the people of Gaza is once again being stolen by the terrorist organization, a video verified by a local NGO. Meanwhile, the IDF posted this footage from 5 days ago that shows Hamas terrorists looting an aid truck, according to the military, saying, quote, "This is the same organization spreading false claims about a deliberate starvation campaign in Gaza. Make it make sense." The video is not yet circulating on mainstream media channels. All comes out as Israel faces international scrutiny for the reports of hunger and starvation inside of the enclave. A local NGO tells ILTV their team members are not reporting environments of starvation, so it's unclear how widespread the reported hunger crisis is, as horrific images of hungry children emerge.
First of all, who is responsible for this tough reality? I answered, this is Hamas. Whether there is a starvation policy, no, the contrary is right. We are doing amazing efforts, including this week, by opening these humanitarian corridors, by airdrops, by any possible means. By the way, in the contrary of the lie that's spread in Western media, or part of it, we are not limiting. We are facilitating for everyone to help.
The IDF says, in cooperation with Jordan, the UAE, and Egypt, 52 aid packages were airdropped into the north and south of Gaza on Tuesday, filled with tons of pounds of food, all while the military paused fighting for 10 hours a day in densely populated cities so aid distributions by organizations were able to be safely carried out. Sivan, these horrific images and reports of hunger inside of the Gaza Strip come out just a few days after Hamas, the terrorist organization, rejected the latest ceasefire and hostage proposal that was on the table back in Doha, Qatar, just last week. It took the terror group about a week just to respond to this deal after they came back with their response being more hard, with more demands on already negotiated points. We know that negotiating teams from all countries, part of these negotiations actually returned back home, and now these reports of hunger continue to come out. Remember, there are 50 Israeli hostages still in captivity at this time, with 20 of them believed to be alive. Sivan?
Thank you very much, Shosh. And joining me now in studio is Israeli journalist Ben-Dror Yamini. Thank you very much for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
So I'd like to start with this report that we just mentioned earlier about Arab states calling Hamas to disarm. How significant is this, in your opinion, that Qatar, Egypt, and Saudi Arabia, among others, are now explicitly calling for Hamas to disarm and end its rule in Gaza?
It's very interesting because actually we see a kind of contradiction between Western countries, which declare one after one, we are going to recognize the Palestinian state from one hand. From the other hand, we see those Arab countries who declare Hamas must disarm itself. I mean, they cannot rule the Gaza Strip anymore. It's very strange because I guess right now we as Israelis feel much better in some Arab countries, speaking mainly about, of course, the Abraham Accords countries, than in many places in Europe. You will not see in UAE something like what happened in Greeks lately, in the last 2 weeks. It is important, but we cannot forget the fact that we are totally dependent on the West. And this kind of recognition in a Palestinian state, it might be just the first move before something which might be much worse, like boycott in beginnings. We cannot ignore the fact that we are speaking about the same countries that actually declared no more arms to Israel. Not only delays, but it was declared by Italy, by Spain, by partly at least by Britain. Practically it happened also by Germany. So we have a problem vis-à-vis the Western countries. We have a real problem. Speaking today about tsunami, so we have to think about a political tsunami against Israel. We cannot ignore it.
It's definitely a political tsunami. Now, Qatar has long been seen as a key backer of Hamas. Do you think that this public statement possibly signals a policy shift in Doha, or is it just symbolic?
We cannot ignore the fact that actually Qatar is funding every campaign against Israel. And I don't remember her name, this, the queen of Qatar, I think her name is Zuma or something like that. I mean, she is actually, with her fund, the Qatari Royal Fund, is funding everything which is against Israel. Now, it is a kind of surprise, Qatar, but Qatar, you know, we all know that they are supporting Hamas. Maybe it's because of the American pressure. The big story is, will they continue to fund the Hamas? Will they continue to fund the campaigns against Israel? For the moment being, I don't see a change. This declaration, it's nice, but it's only a declaration. It's important. I'm not saying that it's not important, but we still have a problem with Qatar, not with all other moderate Arab countries, but with Qatar, we have a real big problem.
Now, Israel sharply criticized the UK's reported plan to recognize a Palestinian state in September. They conditioned it unless Israel goes for a ceasefire. Israel is saying this is a reward for Hamas. Is there anything Israel can do to fight this?
I mean, the main problem of Israel, let's put it on the table, is not hasbara, is not advocacy. The main problem of Israel is actually policy. I mean, what we are striving for, it's not clear. It's not clear to the Israelis, it's not clear to the leaders of Western countries. Where we are heading, it's really not clear. We have to decide ourselves. Now, we cannot ignore the fact that we have some ministers that actually, it looks to me like if they are funded by Qatar that we just mentioned. I mean, with all these declarations about annexation, about we are going to open the gates of hell. I mean, they continue. They know about the huge damage that they inflict upon Israel. And they continue.
Right. But we know that the UK called for a ceasefire as a condition to not recognize a Palestinian state. And they're saying this to Israel, but we know that it's Hamas that in fact has refused several ceasefire and ceasefire for hostage deals. So,
it's very interesting what you're saying, because I'm following the big media channels every day, BBC, CNN, and you always see the same kind of headlines. Israel is refusing a ceasefire. That's the impression.
That's the message that goes out.
That's the message of the big media channels.
That's very unfortunate, because we know that Hamas keeps refusing the deals.
So what I suggest, I mean, I'm not the Prime Minister, but what I suggest the Prime Minister, you know what, go to the UN and declare publicly, we are supporting a big ceasefire. We are beginning a ceasefire. Hamas is refusing. I want everyone in the world to know.
A lot of self-reflection here. Ben-Dor Yamini, thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
When Israel is under fire, the world watches. But we act. Since 1901, Jewish National Fund USA has stood with our homeland. From the moment missiles rained down, we were there, caring for children of essential workers, turning shelters into sanctuaries, providing fire trucks and more. Israel is our family, and you always show up for family. To support the people of Israel for today and tomorrow, turn to the trusted name in philanthropy, Jewish National Fund USA.
Millions of Israelis were once again forced to shelter as the Houthi rebels fired yet another ballistic missile at central Israel. The single projectile was intercepted by air defenses. There were no reports of impacts or injuries. Sirens sounded across central Israel and the Jerusalem area. Since March 18th, when the IDF resumed its offensive against Hamas in Gaza, the Houthis have launched 66 ballistic missiles and at least 17 drones at Israel. Most of the threats were shot down by air defense. Recent missile attacks failed to cause major damage. The IDF announced that fighters from the Duvdevan unit and the Shin Bet arrested 12 terrorists planning to carry out attacks in Judea and Samaria. The army says that over the past weeks, IDF fighters conducted dozens of operational and targeted activities throughout the territories as part of the ongoing effort to thwart terrorism. The army says that 2 armed terrorists were killed and 36 wanted individuals were arrested, including 12 terrorists planning an attack. The forces located and confiscated combat gear, including improvised explosives and weapons. The government of the Netherlands has issued a ban against the entry of 2 members of the Israeli government. The order prevents the entry of far-right cabinet ministers Itamar Ben-Gvir and Bezalel Smotrich while pushing for sanctions against Israel due to the humanitarian situation in Gaza. The travel bans on the 2 Israeli ministers accuses them of repeatedly inciting violence against Palestinians and calling for ethnic cleansing of the Gaza Strip. Israeli Foreign Minister Gideon Saar said the Dutch government's decision chose to convert a long-standing friendship with Israel into open hostility towards it, precisely during their difficult time and probably due to political interests. The Dutch foreign minister also warned Israel of potential trade sanctions.
Het is heel duidelijk dat wij mee als Nederlands kabinet hier een heel duidelijk signaal geven aan Israël. Het opschorten van het handelsdeel van het EU-Israël associatieakkoord, dat bepleiten. Er zijn nog maar heel weinig lidstaten van de EU die dat doen. En dat gaat echt over miljarden aan Israëlische export. Het inreisverbod voor 2 Israëlische ministers. Alleen nog Slovenië die dat al heeft ingesteld in de Europese Unie. Dus we zijn wat dat betreft in Europa zijn we ook echt een koploper.
Before we go, a quick word about how you can support independent journalism. At ILTV, we're committed to bringing you original reporting and stories from Israel that often don't make it into the global spotlight. If you value diverse perspectives and reliable coverage, you can now subscribe through our app to help ILTV News grow. Just scan the QR code on your screen to help us expand our reporting, continue delivering the kind of journalism that informs, challenges, and connects. Your subscription helps us do more than report the news. It helps ensure that stories from this region are told with depth, integrity, and clarity. With your support, we can continue building a space for journalism that informs, connects, and inspires. Amid the worsening crisis in southern Syria, members of the Druze community in Israel are stepping up in solidarity with their relatives across the border in Syria. Volunteers have set up an emergency aid hub, collecting vital supplies and raising international awareness of the suffering in the Druze majority region of Sueda. In a warehouse in northern Israel, members of the Druze community are working around the clock. Their mission to deliver life-saving aid to fellow Druze under siege in southern Syria. Hundreds of people were murdered in great days of violence in Sueda, where Syrian government forces were sent to intervene in clashes between Druze factions and Bedouin tribes. Volunteers in Israel say their effort began after a direct appeal from the spiritual leader of the Druze in Israel.
بعد ما صارت الأحداث مع إخواننا في سوريا سماحة الشيخ موفق طلب إنه نقيم غرفة عمليات طوارئ للطائفة المعروفين اللي تقدر تساعد إخواننا في جبل الدروز على المحنة اللي عم بمروا فيها.
This team doesn't just gather aid, it also runs a multilingual media campaign distributing videos and images of the violence and humanitarian crisis in Sueda.
القسم هذا بيشتغل ب5 لغات: عربي، عبري، إنجليزي، ألماني وبعض لغاتنا إضافية. هو المسؤول يطلع من هنا كل الأفلام القصيرة اللي احنا بنطلعها عرضاً نعرضها لكل العالم على الجرائم اللي عم بتصير بالسويدة. Volunteers collect footage from social media and local contacts, amplifying the voices of a besieged community. And the response has been massive.
قمنا بجمع أكثر من 70 طن طحين، أكثر من 20 مشتاح أدوات طبية، أكثر من 7000 لتر سولار محروقات، كمية كبيرة من الزيت تقدر بحوالي 10,000 قنينة زيت. قمنا بجمع أحذية كمية تقريبا 20 مشتاح.
Sheikh Tarif says the situation in Sueda is dire and unjust.
تأملنا كثيرا إنه سوريا الجديدة النظام الجديد أن يحتضن جميع سكان سوريا بجميع أهلها وسكانها وطوائفها. هذا ما نتمناه وحتى اليوم نرجو أن يكون هذا التوافق الاجتماعي بين جميع سكان سوريا. هذا ما نريد.
The Israeli Druze continue to support their Syrian brothers and sisters in this time of crisis and send a clear message that the Druze community on both sides of the border stands united in the face of hardship. Anti-Israel protests in Greece directed against arriving Israeli tourists are continuing. This time, the anti-Israel protest was on the Greek island of Crete as a cruise ship with Israeli tourists docked on the island. It was the third such protest on a Greek island since last week, with earlier protests on Syros and Rhodes. There was a large police presence guarding the Israelis and allowing them to disembark safely. Protesters held a large Palestinian flag and shouted anti-Israel slogans. Projectiles were thrown at the buses, carrying the passengers as they passed through the port town. Police fired tear gas into the protesting crowd after scuffles broke out. 3 protesters were arrested by police, but released later on. And in other news, a prominent Israeli actor was pronounced dead yesterday after his sudden collapse on a beach in Israel. Alon Abutul was a decorated actor, and today we remember his accomplishments and contributions to the world of Israeli cinema. ILTV's Devo Klein has more.
Alon Abutul is one of Israel's most decorated and acclaimed actors, recognized and loved by most Israelis. Abutul was one of the first Israelis to score multiple roles in Hollywood films. So who was Alon Abutul? Alon was born in 1965 in Kiryat Ata in northern Israel, and at just 15, Abutul took his first acting class. By age 18, Abutul was serving in the IDF and had already filmed 4 Israeli films. It was during his military service when Abutul landed his first major role, a docudrama on the First Lebanon War titled 2 Fingers from Sidon. Abutul's role as a Lebanese soldier turned heads, and he was soon casted in many more Israeli projects before landing his first Hollywood role in 1991 when he played in Killing Streets. From his early roles to his later days, Abutul has amassed over 100 film roles to his name and is credited in multiple projects in Israel and globally. In his most famous and recognizable role, Abutul played a scientist in the opening scene in Christopher Nolan's The Dark Knight Rises, the penultimate film in the Batman series. Alon also plays a minor role in the first film of the series, The Dark Knight, a fan and critic favorite. Fans were devastated when they found out that the man that had mysteriously collapsed on a beach in northern Israel was actually identified as the beloved actor. After failed CPR attempts at the scene, the paramedics declared him dead at age 60. Alon was an Ophir Award and Television Academy Award winner, and over the years portrayed a wide range of characters to which he brought to each depth and emotion, leaving a deep mark on Israeli culture. May his memory be a blessing.
Israel's tech sector is celebrating a landmark deal. Palo Alto Networks is acquiring CyberArk in a merger worth approximately $25 billion, the second largest exit in Israeli history, behind the Waze Google deal. Both companies share Israeli roots. CyberArk is a native Israeli cybersecurity firm, while Palo Alto was founded by Israeli entrepreneur Nir Tzuk and operates key development centers in Israel. The merger is expected to preserve CyberArk as an independent division within Palo Alto, maintaining much of its unique company culture. ILTV spoke to CFO Nir Tzuk. Take a look.
Investing in Israel, the expected exit is not, okay, we're going to sell it for a few tens or a few hundreds of millions of dollars to a US company that will take the technology and productize it. There is a proven opportunity here to build companies worth billions of dollars that are fully developed into selling products around the world.
Now let's take a look at the weather forecast. Cloudy skies are expected around most of the country tonight, with temperatures reaching lows of 25 degrees Celsius or 76 degrees Fahrenheit. Then tomorrow we'll see clear skies alongside hot temperatures, seeing highs of 32 degrees Celsius or 90 degrees Fahrenheit. That's a wrap for today's news. For the latest updates from Israel on all your devices, be sure to follow our ILTV channels and our new live channel. And you can also catch us on Screen IL with 24/7 live coverage. Stay informed with the latest news straight from the heart of Israel. I'm Sivan Raviv. Be well, be safe, and thank you so much for watching.